Hello, today we're going to work on Lesson 8, and this is going to be on translating words to math. Use the following chart to help translate mathematical phrases or statements written in words into math expressions, equations, and inequalities. This is a list of frequently used words or phrases, and we're going to start with words that discuss operations. Our four main operations are addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. There are, of course, other words we can add to this list, but this is a good start. So let's focus on this word sum. You're going to notice that it's bolded. And for the most part, when we're given a word or phrase, we write it in the order that it's given. And some of the words all lead us to not use the order that's given. For instance, if they said the word sum, they usually say the sum of 10 and 4. So you're going to see the word and in that phrase, and that's where we insert the plus sign. So we wouldn't write something as this, plus 10 and 4. We would take this plus sign and put it in the center of those two numbers. So the next you're going to notice that there are stars down here, asterisks rather, and it mentions more than, greater than, and added to. The reason why those have asterisks in front of them is because they make us switch the order. When we are given a phrase, if they said 4 added to 10, we would take 10 first and add 4 to it, or 4 more than 10. We would write 10 plus 4. So we'll see examples of that coming up. So let's move on to subtraction. Once again, you're going to notice that subtraction is bolded, and the reason why it's bolded is the same as sum. When they say the word difference, that means they're going to say the difference of, let's say, 10 and 4. So again, we are going to place that minus sign where the word and is. And just like we did before, you're going to notice asterisk on these phrases. So less than, fewer than, and subtracted from means we're going to switch the order. If they say 4 fewer than 10, then it means I have to take 10 first and subtract 4 from it. Or 4 subtracted from 10, I would write 10 first and then show subtracting 4. All right, now we're going to discuss multiplication. And once again, you're going to see the word product. They say that word generally before. We need to insert the times. For instance, for the product of 4 and 10, I would again place that times sign where the word and is. And speaking of the times sign, because we are writing things no longer using the times sign, we would prefer to write this as 4 times 10, and that's because this times sign looks like a variable, so we tend to write it using the parentheses. Finally, let's look at our division, the word quotient also. As you probably have guessed, we insert division symbol where the word and is, and once again we're using kind of the high school way. We would write 10 divided by 4 more than likely rather than using this symbol. And last but not least, we're going to talk about relationships in math. So we talked about the operations, and operations are what we do with the numbers. We put them together or we divide them in groups depending on what operation we're given. Well, relationships are saying that one side, there's a relationship with the other side. For instance, if I wrote an equation, 4 plus 10 equals 14, then both sides the value would be 14, and I would see a relationship to the two groups I have on either side. So the word that we're going to use for equal, and by the way, an equation means that we're going to see an equal sign, very important. We are going to use the word is, the actual word equals, or sometimes they put is equal to. So those are the phrases or words we're going to see. And is probably the toughest one because it's a little word and sometimes it's easy to miss. And inequality, here are the words. is less than, is more than, is less than or equal to, is more than or equal to, at most, at least. We can also include maximum and minimum. You're going to notice that I've bolded or capitalized is in front of less than. So let's compare that to the operations that we saw earlier. You may have noticed that when we talked about less than, we saw that also right here when we're talking about subtraction, less than. Now, if we put that tiny little word is in front of it, it changes the meaning of that phrase. It's an inequality, and suddenly we're actually talking about the less than symbol. If it says is more than, you're going to notice we have more than here when it means an operation of addition, more than. But if you have that tiny little word is, we're also talking about a relation. And we could also say is greater than. And if it has that word is, it's suddenly talking about a relationship between two quantities. So the is less than or equal to symbol, just to remind you, looks like this, is greater than, or is more than or greater than equal to. We need that symbol. And we're going to spend a whole lesson on the at most, at least, and also maximum and minimum. So let's move to the next page. So we're going to complete this page together because I want you to have examples of many of the different situations we're going to run into. And generally speaking, when we're given some phrase to translate, we write it in the order that it's given. However, there's many pitfalls to that, and a lot of words or phrases can change the order that we're going to write it. First, read and circle each and every word that has mathematical meaning. Second, decide what the unknown quantity is and define a variable. So we're going to be working with algebraic expressions and equations. Finally, rewrite what is given in words into mathematical signs and symbols. For the following, we're going to let x represent a number, the unknown quantity, unless another variable is given. So we've defined this variable already. So if they say a number, we're going to use x unless they give us another variable to use. So if you recall, expressions do not contain an equal sign and they do not contain an inequality sign. So we're going to start by first looking at this phrase, 6 times a number. And so I'm going to circle 6 that has mathematical meaning, times, yes, and a number, if you recall, they ask us to use the variable x. So this, we could write 6 times a number, but we can see why we don't want to do that if we write it out. We'd prefer to write 6x. That would be the high school way to write that. Side by side means multiply, and this is our variable x. So moving on, we have the sum of a number and 9. And sum means that we're adding a number and 9. And we spoke about this earlier on the front of the page. Sum, you're going to notice we have to put that addition sign where the word and is. So a number, they ask us to use the variable x. We're going to add, because that's what sum means, and 9. So we just translated words to math. Last one, the quotient of 2 and a number w. Sometimes they give us the variable in the phrase that they want us to use. So the word quotient means that we're dividing the number 2 and a number, but they're telling us specifically that they want us to use w. This is another case where the quotient means that we're dividing, but I want to insert that where the word and is. And the high school way to write this, from top to bottom, they give me 2 first, so 2 divided by w. We could also write it this way, but since we're trying to work on writing and seeing it the high school way, we'll choose to write it that way. Now let's move forward. A few clue words are tricky. We use more than as addition and less than as subtraction. However, if they are preceded by the word is, meaning if is comes before these phrases, the meaning changes to an inequality sign. As if that's not enough, more than and less than cause the order the statement is given to switch For that reason we try to memorize this phrase called the than switch. If I see than and it's not preceded by is, I'm going to switch the order of what's given to me. So let's see what that looks like. We're going to start with our phrase 7 more than. Notice it doesn't have is, so it means I'm going to be adding a number. But because they said than, more than, we're going to do the than switch. 7 is going to move over to the end, and a number is going to move in front. So this is the way that we were given the information, but we're going to switch it. We want to see it as x plus 7. Now you probably think this is silly when we're adding, and we'd get the same value no matter which order we added it in, but it's important to write the true meaning of this phrase. And when we get to subtraction, that would cause some issues if we don't write it in the right order. So the next one, 9 less than a number. You're going to notice again, 9, they didn't say is less than, so this means we're subtracting, and a number. So this is how they've given it to me. 9 minus a number. That's what it looks like. But the fact they used than, we're going to do the than switch. So it should be written as x minus 9. And this would very definitely change the value if we took 9 minus 4 as opposed to 4 minus 9. And then last but not least, we have 4 years less than Bob's age. Did you notice how they didn't give us a number? They didn't say a number. So I'm going to let B, I have to define a variable, equal Bob's age. So I defined a variable as the directions above said. So what they've given me is I see 4 first, less than would be minus, but and then Bob's age we're going to write as B. However, if you thought about it, 4 less than your age, you would take your age and take away 4. So if I use my logic, it makes sense why we would take Bob's age and take away 4. 4 less than his age. So this is the way we should write that phrase. All right, getting to the end, we're going to move on now to equations. The word is often implies a relation between one set of information and another. Used by itself, it's a clue word for the equal sign. So this time, we're not only going to use operations, we have to watch out for clue words that mean a relationship, in this case, an equal sign. So we're going to look at twice a number is 8. So if I ask you to take twice your age, again, you would probably take 2 times your age, and that's exactly what this means. So we're going to write twice a number, and we're going to use x for that unknown number. Now is the equal sign and 8. So when we say twice a number, it implies that we're multiplying. The total of 32 in a number equals 87. So the total, that's implying that we're adding, of 32 and a number equals 87. So total would be one of those phrases that we'd insert here, the total. I'm taking 32 and I'm adding a number, which we're calling x for right now, unknown number, and that's going to equal 87. The next phrase is the product of 5 and n is 35. So product means that we're multiplying. 5, n, they're giving us a variable this time, is, and 35. So the product is where we insert that we're multiplying right here where the and is. And we're multiplying 5 and n. So I'm going to write it the high school way, 5n. You could write 5 times n using the time sign. It's not incorrect. Equals 35. We just much prefer to see it this way, the way I've written in this way. Okay, we prefer to write it the high school way. Nothing wrong with writing it the second way. Just preferred to write it this way. Finally, the result of adding 4 to a number is equal to 25. So the result of adding, so we're adding 4, but they mentioned adding 4 to a number. So adding to a number is equal to 25. So they're saying I'm adding 4 to a number. So they want me to start with the number, which we're going to call x. I'm adding 4 to it, and that's going to equal 25. Again, this phrasing right here, adding to, these two words right here, imply that we have to switch the order. So I thank you for listening. I know this was a long lesson. Tomorrow, I'm going to ask you to try this independently on the next lesson. Thank you.